There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers, a dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends, a place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view, but when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Hello and welcome. You're tuned in to the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Darkness Radio. We're back with a brand new edition. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. That's my Bobby Brown. Tim Dennis over there. Was Bobby Brown part of New Edition?
Bobby Brown was the head of New Edition for a long time. So yeah, I'll take that. Sure.
There you go.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
I like to give credit where credit is due. You are my Bobby Brown, Tim.
If you want to be
just not going to get near any open bathtubs with you. I'm sorry.
He didn't kill Whitney. Mm-hmm. Wow. You are really stretching it, my friend. You're kind of taking the conspiracy to a whole new level here. Bobby wasn't within 1,000 miles of that bathtub.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really, Tim? How do you know how close he was to her bathtub? Yeah, that's what I thought. Good day, sir.
Wow.
I said good day, sir.
Talking about...
Boy, what a string of bad luck this poor guy's had, huh?
Talking about opening it up to a lawsuit here at Darkness Radio. No problem.
No, you're the one that said I allege it. All I said is I wouldn't be anywhere near a bathtub with him. I didn't say that he did it. I'm just saying I would be near a bathtub.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, the people around him have some bad luck with bathtubs. I mean, we're just being honest. No, I'm not meaning to sound cold, but it's true. I gotta believe it's Bobby Brown's. Not Bobby Millie Brown. That's a different. Who is it?
Well, she better look out too. Evidently,
his daughter was Bobby Brown as well, right?
Bobby Christina. Yes.
Right, and she's the one that also drowned in the bathtub. And don't they think it was the boyfriend?
Yeah, the boyfriend was under suspicion. I think he also got charged at one time, I believe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is he? So I'm not meaning point finger. Like, I honestly believe Bobby Brown did it. I'm joking around, obviously, but just bad luck around that guy and people near bathtubs. It's just a horrible thing. Wow. All right. Yeah. Yes, Tim.
Yeah, tragedy all the way around. Bobby Brown's had let's just say an unfortunate ride in stardom. We'll put it that way. There's a lot of self-inflicted there. There was a lot of drugs and a lot of bad behavior.
Go from creating the theme song for the second Ghostbusters to just relative obscurity.
You skipped a whole lot of career there when you went to...
I don't know. I wasn't even sure he was with... I didn't know if he was Boyz II Men, BB Mac.
Wow.
I don't even know what a BB Mac is, but it sounds delicious, and if it's slathered in enough sauce, I'll eat it.
Holy cow. Ooh, yeah. Gut punch here. Wow, you are swinging wild.
That wasn't my music in the 80s. You know, I was very synth and poppy, and then into the 90s, I listened to 80s music. So, again, I just,
that was 80s music.
That boy band stuff just wasn't, I like to pass the Dutchie upon the left-hand side. I dig that tune. I'm sure I liked one or two of the, New Edition songs. Were they the ones with also little kids at one point when they were singing?
They were teenagers. Yes, they were.
Who was the other little? I know there was the group that had little kids in it that did Pass the Dutchie, but there was another. I thought there was another African American boy band that was really young.
Let me break down the New Edition tree for you, if I may. Okay.
Oh.
I'll do it. I'll do it real quick. Okay. Uh-huh. So New Edition had Bobby Brown until Bobby had a fallout. Then they brought in Johnny Gill. Okay.
Right.
And Ralph Tresvant takes over the group. So Ralph Tresvant, Johnny Gill, kind of co-lead singers. Bobby Brown goes off, does his own thing. Okay. This is in the late 80s. After they're becoming more men. But then at that point, New Edition decides, you know what? We're good as a band, but then you have the three guys, Bell, Biv, and DeVoe, who decide, you know what? In the late 80s, early 90s, we're going to do our own thing. So they do the Bell, Biv, DeVoe thing. But then you have one guy in the group who decides, you know what? I'm going to form a couple of different groups and my own label, because everybody was doing their own micro labels, like micro breweries. And you had Another Bad Creation, which was the little guys group you're thinking of. You know, they had the At the Playground and Aisha, right? The little rap,
okay.
Right? Okay, sure. I think those are the ones you're thinking of.
Maybe, yeah.
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 And whatever that was in the background.
Sorry, my radio just fired off. I just got news that Rush Limbaugh has passed away.
What?
Yeah, Rush Limbaugh at the age of 70 has passed away.
Wow.
That's I didn't mean to do. I just hit the news button and it fired off on that. But I don't know. I'll have to verify that as we're talking. So
yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Keep doing that, and I'll finish my thought here. So you have little splits in the New Edition deal, and eventually, as most things do, it all falls to crap. I mean, you know, you have your little hits, and so you have little artists that spin off artists, and eventually, you know, the money train runs out. Everybody goes home for a little bit. And then New Edition decides, as they get old and they become older men, we're going to make a movie about ourselves. So they did. And this was just maybe about 5-10 years ago. They make a movie about themselves, and they enjoy a little bit of a resurgence. And then, of course, everybody goes back to going home and sitting in front of the TV on the couch eating Cheetos and doing Coke.
So just like you and me.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
So that's essentially what happened in New Edition.
Huh.
Yeah, in a nutshell. Yeah.
Yeah, sadly, the news is confirmed. Rush Limbaugh, conservative talk radio pioneer, dead at age 70. Whether you're a fan or not of the man, he was a radio icon, very influential media icon, really kind of transformed talk radio and politics. And he has passed away due to complications from his stage 4 lung cancer, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really did. He, like you said, whether you agreed with his politics or not, Rush changed the way that talk radio was presented, and changed the way that talk radio was presented in a market, and really made in a time where talk radio had lost profitability. Made talk radio
viable again, yeah.
Not only viable, yeah, but a viable syndicated type vehicle where it looked like it was all was pretty much lost, and it wasn't something that it could be done. And also, Dave, the interesting thing was Rush took talk from AM to FM, and really was the first talk show that was flipped over to the FM dial. And I think a lot of people don't really realize that it was his show that was the first talk show that was syndicated on the FM dial. So he really was a pioneer when it came to that.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, may you be in heaven for an hour before the devil knows you're dead, Mr. Limbaugh. Thank you for years of entertaining talk. And again, I was never a fan of Rush Limbaugh. I don't particularly like political talk radio or the bluster, but I appreciate the craft. You know, it's like we're Vikings fans. I don't like the Packers, but you cannot say that Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers were not two of the best quarterbacks, right? You've got to give credit where credit is due. I may not like that aspect of them, but they are astounding. You know, Tom Brady, you may not like the Patriots, but you can't take it away from the guy. He's one of the, if not the greatest quarterbacks to ever live. So yeah, it's kind of with Rush. Interesting. Hey, we have a quick email. Hi, Dave. Sorry, Tim. New listener to the podcast, but I'm a huge fan of the Holzer Files. I don't know if you've heard of that, Tim. It's a little TV show I have on over at Discovery Plus.
No, I'll have to check it out.
I'll have to talk about it more often to remind you, Tim.
Yeah, you will.
It's every Saturday, brand new episodes of Holzer Files on Discovery Plus. And Thursdays, we do a live video stream where I look at the week before's episode with a special guest or two, and we talk about the paranormal. We talk about the episode, and we talk, take a deeper dive into the history of it. And then that episode's made available here on Darkness Radio every Friday as a podcast. So you can watch the live video stream on our YouTube page or Darkness Radio's Facebook page, or you can wait and hear the podcast. Anyway, I digress. Hi, Dave. That's still how it starts off even the second time around, Tim. New listener to the podcast, but huge fan of the Holzer files. And I've been Googling and have yet to have gotten a clear answer. What is the difference between scrying and psychometry? Do you have a podcast episode that covers any of this? Thanks. Love your work and your sense of humor on the podcast, Melissa Schroeder. Or perhaps Schrader, spelling it with the German O-E. Melissa, this is what I will tell you. Psychometry is when your mediums or sensitives are picking up on the vibrational information given from an item or a place. So they're kind of looking at residual ghosts, if you will. You take off your ring, hold it. I can sense that you like iced tea. I can sense you eat a lot of McRibs. And, well, partly because there's McRib sauce wedged in your ring, but also because, the energy I expel whilst eating them and preparing to eat them has been locked into my metal of that ring. So that's kind of psychometry, right? It's taking it, it's reading the energy from an item. Scrying is something different. Michel de Nostradamus, the famous, I don't know, what do you call him, Tim? Prophet? What's the right word? He would see the future and talk about it and see things. And he would do what's called scrying. Mm-hmm. He had a bowl of water next to him, and he would gaze into the water. And then, like a movie playing out, he would see reflections of things to come. And then he would write them down in his quatrains. So when you're looking into a mirror, you're scrying, you're inviting the spirit realm to interact with you through this mirror and bent glass and reflective light. You can also scry with a dowsing rods or with a pendulum. I'm not a big fan of dowsing rods or pendulums because I feel there's too much of the idiomotor issue behind it. And I've stood there watching people's hand move, and I'm like, your hand's moving. No, it's not. No, it's not. And you can see the hand moving. So I have a hard time, because we are fallible as humans, with that type of scrying. But I think it's the reading of the information as well. I believe some people can, like if you roll the bones or read tea leaves, I believe that's a version of scrying. But that's kind of the breakdown. Scrying seems to cover a much bigger swath of what it could be, but it's mostly trying to look into something to get information from it. Does that answer the question, you think, Tim?
Oh, I think you've covered it perfectly. Yeah.
All right, good. All right. Well, I wasn't sure. Just looking for that backup.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you got it. Yeah.
Dear Dave and Tim,
I
have a second story to share. Oh, wait a minute. Did he send me a first story to share, and I just haven't gotten to it yet?
You know what, Dave? This may be a rarity. This may be the person who said, I have a story for another time, who actually followed through.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually look him up to see if we have, I don't want to miss his first story. Maybe we read it weeks ago.
Okay.
Let's see. You know what? I see one from back in March of 2016. Yeah.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. The one he originally wrote back in 2016 says, I've only listened to the show for about 6 months and I really enjoy it. I've listened to Coast AM for years, first as a security guard in Tucson, Arizona, and now as an EMT in Nebraska when I work the late shift. Loved your show. Now to the story. In 2004 in Apopka, Florida, I was living with my dad and stepmom at the time, and I was attending Apopka Senior High. One morning, I had just gotten off the bus and had made my way to the back patio when with a triangle-shaped open ceiling. I was big in art back then, and I was with my art teacher along with 6 other students. My teacher, for some reason, looked up. He stared long enough for us to notice. I joined him and looked up, and what I saw blew my mind. I believe in UFOs before, but this made me a true believer. The object in the sky had to be about the size of a football field and a half. It was black. It was the shape of a closed cereal box that had been laid on its side. My instructor took out his phone, one of the first flip phones, and attempted to take a photo. He took several photos of it. You could clearly see the object displayed in the screen. After about 8 minutes, the object disappeared. My instructor attempted to email or text the photos to his email. I cannot remember which. When he finally got the photos transferred to his computer, all the photos were corrupt except one, the one that had nothing in it. So we were left without proof. Isn't that always the way?
Yep.
Thank you for listening to my story, and thank you for doing what you do, even if you only believe in 50% of what you hear. Have a good day. And that comes from Charles. Now, that was from 2016, and he didn't promise, I've got more stories to share.
Huh.
Yeah, he just straight up has a story to share here. Wow. I have a second story to share, he says, with you guys. It happened while I was in high school in Florida. This event occurred with my art instructor and maybe 5 or 6 high schoolers. Happened nearly 15 to 16 years ago. I don't remember the exact date, but I do remember that morning. I had just gotten off the bus and had gone to the back patio, which sounds like the story we just talked about. Happened to be a triangular-shaped area with picnic tables as well as the art class classroom entrance. Me and my instructor, Mr. F., were discussing what was to be going on that day, as I had 3 classes with him. And I remember, so my day was packed with art. We were discussing, for some reason, my instructor turned his attention to the sky. Yeah, we just read this. So he saw this. So he didn't send us a second story. He sent us the first story in hopes that we would finally read it. And we did. Oh. So it only took us 5 years to get to it, but we read it. And I almost read it a second time. Charles in Nebraska. Hey, Charles, thank you for being an EMT and serving, man. We appreciate you doing that and making the world a little bit safer for people out there. So thank you. We do appreciate that. As a father of a firefighter and EMT, I definitely appreciate the work those people do.
Yes. Indeed.
All right. This one, Tim, neither one of us even get addressed. Boom. Straight into it. My grandmother's house is crazy haunted. I lived there off and on in my childhood. She passed in 1996, and we sold the house and property. I have vivid dreams of her home. Since a week since we sold it, I have never been back into the home, but I have driven by. When I do, all the streetlights go dark. There were several American Indians outside the home. I never feared them. In the well house in the basement, a little girl would hide. She reminded me of the 70s toy character Holly Hobby. In the garage lived an evil man dressed as an Old West priest. He had on a black and wool suit, white collarless button-up shirt, black tie that held together with a button, and a round black hat, very similar to the guy in the Poltergeist movie. For some reason, only children could see him. I did see him once after we moved. I was pregnant, and he was in the car behind me. Outside of my grandma's bedroom window, the army would ride their horses down the hill. Sometimes the garage guy was with them. There was another evil guy who was tall. He would try to take my cousin with him. My cousin and I have had many conversations about all of this. My sister also witnessed this activity. She dreams about the house to this day. I feel like I'm supposed to go back. Other ghosts that were there are my grandpa and sister. My grandpa's rocking chair rocked on its own all the time. We could hear my grandma having conversations with him all the time. And a couple days after my grandma passed, my sister, my best friend, and I were upstairs watching TV. The phone rang, so my sister answered it. She could hear an open line and whispering. When she hung up, we remember that the phone had not worked in years. It was one of those old rotary phones. We freaked out and told our mom. She told us the phone company had already disconnected that for several days. And that comes from Kimberly Hennessy of Minnesota.
Aha.
Thank you, Kimberly. Good stories.
Yeah.
She gave them all to us. Boom, boom, boom. Bullet point. Boom, boom, boom. I like that.
I do too, yeah.
Maybe you want to be a part of our show. Maybe you want to call in and share a story and be a part of it. Call our Voices from Beyond voicemail, 651-300-4977. That's 651-300-4977. Tell us your paranormal encounter, just like this caller did.
Hey, Tim. Thought I'd call you. What's up? Hope the foot's doing okay. So I have multiple things. I mean, I'm going to be one of those guys that tell you, we'll save this for another time. But let me give you a couple of my experiences that I have had out in the field. My name's Kenny Freund. I run a Bigfoot research project here in Portland Sasquatch Research Project. But I also hunt ghosts. I worked in the Shanghai tunnels for a little bit. So I guess I'll give you the first story is when I worked in the Shanghai tunnels, I used to work under Michael. If you've ever watched Ghost Adventures, you would have noticed the weird guy who would lead them down into the ground. Well, I worked underneath him. I worked for the tunnels for 2 years. And in one of my experiences, I didn't have a lot of experiences down there. But I'll tell you what, I did have one. Well, I was down there. Well, nobody else was down there before we had tours that night. I went to a door, which was the cell door. And that door opened and slammed by itself. And as I watched it open and slam, as a rambunctious ghost hunter, I guess, I was like, do it again, do it again, do it again. And I opened the door. It didn't do it again. But I did see the door open and slam. All right, so that's not that cool, but let's go to another cool story. I was doing work as a flagger on the bridge in Portland known as the Still Bridge, built in 1930. Like, I can't even fathom how they built this bridge with, like, the counterweights that lift the bridge and stuff, and the multiple people who jumped off this bridge. But one day I was working there, and I was just sitting there. Actually, I was listening to Darkness Radio. And I saw a man walk past me, and when I turned around, I was going to tell him, "You can't go across the bridge, sir." There was nobody there. There wasn't a thing there. And I stood there for a little bit just going, oh, man. Yeah, this shit's crazy. I guess, so, I told you 2 ghost stories that I have. And I have a couple other ghost stories, but I would rather tell you the one on my property that I lived out on the rural area of Oregon here, over by a high school named San Barlow High School. One night, I took my friend to see my little camping spot that I had on our property. And as we walked down, we got past the barbed wire fence and got down into where the woods were. We could hear something sloshing around in the creek. And as soon as we got down there, there was something that was at least 6 feet tall, all white. It looked like a ghost, but it wasn't a ghost. Very 8-figure. I'm a Sasquatch hunter, and I knew what it was. So I saw it walking down the creek, and then me and my buddy, he didn't believe. He went, "What the hell was that?" And he said, "I think I know what it is." So I went to my camping spot that was just only about 50 yards away, and at the top of the hill we could see something big. There was no wind that night. Something big moving back and forth like a tree rocking. And as soon as we saw that, we could hear, we saw 2 little ones run down behind it and into the bushes. And we could hear things running through the bushes towards us. And he goes, "Oh, that's that. We're out. And I was like, "You're right. We're gone." So as we left the forest that night and got all the way back up to my house, which was probably about, I don't know, I'd say an 1/8 of a mile back up a hill, we could hear these things in the bushes. They followed us all the way out. And I think I still got some time. I'm going to tell you this story. Oh, wait. I guess we'll save that for another day. By the way, I love you too, Dave. But go Tim. Team Tim.
Thank you very much for calling in and sharing your story. Beyond Voices from Beyond voicemail. Tim, I still can't say it right. I don't know why. I've created the name of the damn thing, and it's like my own children. I can't remember any of their names. I just snap my fingers and yell boy or girl when somebody's doing something wrong.
I would appreciate it if you start calling it boy or girl from now on, just so I can get my own giggles.
Yeah. Voices from Beyond voicemail 651-300-4977. Stay tuned. We've got a special Theater of the Mind today. This is a story I loved growing up, Tim. And it's not a real story, but it was one that I wanted to share with the audience one of my all-time favorite ghost stories. Tim put some music behind it, a little sound effect action, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it in a new way. That's coming up a little bit later. What's the name of the story? Oh, stay tuned and find out. That's not the name of the story, by the way, Tim. Stay tuned and find out. Not the actual name.
No, that's not the name of it. No.
All right, we have two really weird stories to begin with, Tim. You know how I tell you that sometimes stories come in bunches? And you just get you'll go 15 years without any stories, and then all of a sudden you get two in a week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, here we go. Tim, prepare that box of Twinkies, if you would, because this is how the zombie outbreak begins, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
A deer was caught eating human remains, says scientists. How about that? Scientists have discovered for the first time an instance of a deer eating human remains. The animal, caught mid-feast by a motion-sensitive camera at the Forensic Anthropology Research Facility at Texas State University, a 26-acre area where forensic scientists study how human bodies decompose in the wild. Scientists also monitor how animals interact with the bodies. But the reaction from this white-tailed deer was an unexpected crunch point. Deer are mostly herbivores, although they have been known to scavenge small mammals or birds and occasionally eat other meats, as documented in the Journal of Forensic Scientists. The experts explained that the animal captured on camera was the first known evidence of a deer eating human remains. The deer was scavenging when it came across the decomposing body, which had already been feasted on by vultures. Experts watched as the animal held the bone in its mouth like a cigar on two occasions back in January of 2015. We're just getting the story now, Tim. The body had already been outside for over 182 days. Experts estimated the deer was chewing dry bone. Deer gnaw on bone of other non-human animals to possibly obtain minerals absent in their diet, including phosphorus, calcium, and sodium. And they do that during the winter months. For forensic scientists, the study was not solely to analyze animal behavior, but also the marks left on the bone by the deer are useful for future reference. So, Tim, it starts with this. The deer goes out, eats human remains. He goes and poops, and some little rabbit comes along and eats the poop, and then some hunter goes out and shoots the rabbit, and then cooks up the rabbit, and boom, zombie apocalypse.
Well, you kind of shot down your own story by reading the rest of it, Dave.
Why, Tim? That's their assumption, because they don't want to put fear and panic in the minds of the world that zombie deer are about to break free.
Science! Science wins.
Well, here's more science for you. Here's more science for you. Although I love the way that this is written out. Two animals from totally different species found having consensual sex by scientists. First of all, how do they know it was consensual? Was there a paper sign? Did they overhear the conversation? Hello, Bunny. I would like to have sex with you. Well, all right, Mr. Gopher, as long as you're happy with it. I don't know. I don't know how that all works.
It probably was.
Scientists have caught two animals from completely different species having consensual sex. A new paper titled Interspecies Sexual Behavior Between a Male Japanese Macaque and a Female Deer. Deer are going crazy this week. They're eating humans and they're having sex with monkeys. Describes what is thought to be one of the first ever recorded instances of reproductive interference between two very different animals. Sex between animals of different kinds have been reported across a wide range of the animal kingdom, but those tend to be seen only between animals that are closely related and look similar, and are understood in the context of the relationship to how they allow the animal species to survive. Those reports of very different animals are usually seen between animals that are born and bred in captivity. But a new paper reports mating behavior between two wild animals, a male Japanese macaque and a female sika deer in Japan. In this case, there appeared to be no coercion.
Coercion?
I know. And both the animals appear to behave as though the approach was consensual. Japanese macaques have in the past been known to ride along on deer, but the researchers say the monkey in the new study showed clear sexual behavior toward several female deer. Some of those deer tried to escape, but others apparently consented to the behavior and accepted the mount, the researchers write in the journal Primates. The researchers wrote that one deer seemed to accept to be ridden by the male macaque, and that it was apparently licking stuff that had been deposited on its back by the monkey.
Ah.
Stay right here. I'll go get you a towel.
Another deer refused the mount and threw the macaque off its back. The scientists say that the most likely explanation for the strange behavior is mate deprivation, a theory that suggests that animals that don't have access to females are more likely to show such behavior. That may have been encouraged by the fact that the two animals already play together and cooperate, and that the macaques were entering breeding season, the scientists speculate. As such, it might be just sexual manifestation of the play already seen. Other explanations include the argument that the behavior is a way of learning to copulate, the scientists said, and that it is unlikely given that they are social animals and can learn from one another. It's also unlikely that they would have sex with them because they were short of a mate, since in that case they tend to either self-pleasure or become homosexual, according to this article. Usually reproductive interference is thought to be the result of one animal not properly recognizing what species another animal is. But that also explains why it mostly happens in animals that are closely related and look similar. And so the explanation doesn't apply in the new case. The new case is the only second report of such a case, and apparently the first of its kind, but the scientists hope that further study of it can show how mating happens between species and could also shed light on why humans show a sexual interest in animals. What? That went off the rails quick.
Whoa.
I was in high school driving with my buddy, Rick, and you know Rick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as we're driving along, we see a Great Dane mount a very small cow
What?
in somebody's front yard. They had this cow kind of tethered in the front yard, and it's chewing grass, and this Great Dane just gets up and starts making a milkshake. It was one of the craziest. We had to watch. How do you not watch? You're like, what am I watching?
Yeah.
This was before cell phones, or I would have videotaped it and put it on the internet, because people need to see a Great Dane and a cow making love. Sweet, sweet love, Tim.
You'd have got about 2 or 3 million views on TikTok with that deal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. You know, when you said throw the macaque off your back, all I could hear was yakety yak in my head. I heard
Yakety yak, throw the macaque off your back.
Yeah, I heard yakety yak, throw the macaque off your back.
I like it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I bet one of our listeners can actually put that into a song and send it to us.
Yeah.
All right, a ranch bordering Area 51 is for sale, Tim, including the famous black mailbox, famous with the alien obsessed. That's right. Have you ever wanted to buy a ranch that allows you to access the top secret Area 51 military base? Well, you're going to need to dig out your checkbook, because the Medlin Ranch is now on the market. It is the only cattle ranch that is directly adjacent to the world's best-known military base. The ranch is also home to one of the most enduring stories about Area 51, the legend of the Black Box. Nevada's Tickaboo Valley is a beautiful but sparse area. It is not the place you might think to raise and graze cattle. And when a cowboy named Steve Medlin first moved into the valley in the early 70s, there were no buildings, no running water, and no utilities. Medlin and his wife built their large ranching operation using their own sweat and labor, and eventually had 750 head of cattle. They and the rest of the world knew almost nothing about the top secret work underway just over the ridge at an area named Area 51, a designation that disappeared from maps in the late 70s. In the mid-80s, they got a crash course on Area 51 when the United States Air Force seized 89,000 acres of public land with no explanation. Some of that land had been used by Medlin to graze his cattle. They say it's never going to make no difference, Medlin said, and I'd like to see something in writing saying that. Medlin eventually worked out a deal with the Air Force. The military told him he could enter the forbidden base to tend his roaming cattle, but he needed to call first on radio, on the radio that they gave him. Things became more complicated in 1989 when an anonymous man appeared on KLAS TV, the Class, Tim, in Las Vegas, and said he worked at that secret base on alien technology. The man, of course, Bob Lazar, and he said he had personally seen 9 flying discs. Suddenly, the UFO faithful began arriving by the busloads to Tickaboo Valley. Months before his name was made public, the anonymous scientist, Lazar, showed up at the Rachel Bar and Grill, now called the Little Alien, in the company of KLAS TV and wealthy businessman named Robert Bigelow. UFO visitors came to believe that a black mailbox installed on the nearby highway was the spot where Bob Lazar had recorded his UFO videos. In reality, it was not. The black mailbox belonged to Steve Medlin, not the government. People thought, oh my God, there's got to be a mailbox of Area 51. Rachel, resident and webmaster of Dreamland Resort, Jorg Arnu, told Mystery Wire recently, so they just started opening it up, going through the mail. And of course, the story was what really is not just mail, it's the mail to Area 51. A story is the rancher even found some of his pieces of mail with bullet holes in them. And in 1996, Highway 375 was renamed the Extraterrestrial Highway, commonly called the ET Highway, and the black mailbox was replaced with a welded bulletproof white box. But it too became an attraction to place to camp out, scan the skies, leave graffiti, and take selfies. The black mailbox has been decades-long meeting place for the extraterrestrial obsessed who gather near the mailbox to try their luck at eyeing a UFO, or better yet, communicating with life beyond, according to Travel Nevada. At one point, when I visited the mailbox, I saw that Mulder from the X-Files had signed it. So, it became part of Area 51 folklore, and people would still gather there. It was almost like a shrine. It was almost like you had to visit the black mailbox or your mission was just not complete. And I don't see that Mulder signed it. Somebody just wrote, I heart Mulder, and underneath it, I heart Scully. So it's not like David Duchovny or his character Fox Mulder went out there and signed this, but whatever. Who's here to quibble? One group that made a mailbox a destination was the Roadrunners, a distinguished group of former Area 51 employees. Roadrunners were just a handful of the thousands of people who descended on the valley for the Storm Area 51 festivities of 2019, a huge law enforcement contingent set up on the other side of the road from Medlin's ranch. And a few years before the Storm Area 51 event, Medlin had actually moved his mailbox somewhere else, and now he will also be moving. Since late 2020, the Medlin Ranch has been listed for sale. How much do you think a plot of land, it includes 2 homes, 70 irrigation spots for cattle, 80 total acres of land. Half of the land was sold to Medlin by the Bureau of Land Management for $19,000 back in the day. The government has also installed a weather station on his land. How much do you think this property is worth?
You said there was how many buildings on it?
2 homes, 70 irrigation spots for cattle, 80 total acres of land.
I'm going to go 500,000.
$4.5 million, Tim.
Wow.
So the current rate of earning, we should be able to afford that by the time we turn 219.
Huh. I'd have thought... Yeah. Being that far out, it would have been devalued, but I guess not. I guess the
not when it's butted up next to Area 51, brother.
Well,
I'm sure they put the big price tag on it so that the government will buy that property from him for probably $3 million.
I think it's more the market that's inflated than it is the actual value of the land. Or the land is more valuable than the actual where it's at.
Well, Medlin and his wife are now ready to let someone else navigate the thin line between the UFO faithful and the so-called camo dudes dedicated to keeping them all out of Area 51. I really spent a lot of time myself camping in that location because it's the best place to meet people interested in various aspects of Area 51, according to Arnu. And you meet everybody from the military aviation people, the secret black project people, UFO people. And what better way to meet anybody than to get a picture to form my own picture of Area 51? The real estate agent handling the sale told Mystery Wire back in December that a pending deal had entered escrow, but as of February 9th, it is still in escrow and has not been closed. I'd love to buy that property. Man, could you imagine owning the ranch butted up against Area 51? I would let people on my property to skywatch. You charge $50 a night. Would you pay? I'm asking listeners. Would you pay $50 a night to be able to camp on my 80 acres and stare at the skies and be that close to Area 51? $50 a night per person, or maybe $100 per tent, so you could fit 5 people in a tent. So just would you do it, folks? Email me, Dave@darknessradio.com. Dave at TimDarknessRadio.com. Not familiar with that, but it is my email address.
Oh, I had no clue. So let me ask you this, though. Okay, so how close do you think you could get to the property line, one? And two, because that's going to be a question that people are going to ask. And because you're going to have the looky-loos, they're going to want to get as close to the property line as possible to be able to skywatch, because you know they're going to want to try and peek inside.
Yeah.
And then,
well, you know what? Here you do. You just tell them, hey, I will give you access to this area, but from this point forward, you're on your own. And if you enter the area, you will be shot, and there's no refunds or deposits given back,
and no paying off your relatives.
Yeah.
And you'd probably have to sign some sort of waiver. But then the other thing would be too. I guess this is related to the first part. Would be what's the penalty? Is there any penalty if you decide that you want to kind of over the?
I think you could be shot. There's signs that say that you can and will be shot. Now, most times they've turned people away, but I wouldn't be careful. Well, I wouldn't be careful. I mean, I would be careful.
What happens if you do make it over and then back again? And you find out?
Then you get the T-shirt that says "I stormed Area 51 and made it back again," and all I got to prove it is this stupid T-shirt.
Is it like the Lollapalooza challenge over at Bridgman's? You give them like a medal and a T-shirt.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Or a bullet in the ass.
Oh.
That's where I would aim. If I was the Black Ops guys, I'd shoot them right in the ass as they're running away from me. I'd give them, and you know what? I'd make it a UFO. I'd engrave a UFO on the side of the bullet so that they can have their encounter.
Oh, look at that.
Speaking of which, Tim, this is some big freaking news that came out this week that just kind of went under the wire.
Okay.
Are you ready for this? This is reported. This was on the front page of MSN News yesterday.
Okay.
This is the headline. Tim, how is this not blowing up? Roswell crash? Pentagon admits testing wreckage from UFO crashes. Just let that sink in. Pentagon admits testing wreckage from UFO crashes. The Pentagon has finally admitted to testing wreckage of UFO crashes, according to author Anthony Bragalia, who wrote to the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency, known as DIA. The DIA reportedly released a 154-page test result of a mysterious memory metal called nitinol, which remembers its original shape when folded, Bragalia claimed. A stunning admission by the U.S. government that it possesses UFO debris was recently made in response to a Freedom of Information Act request filed over 3 years ago by the author. Bragalia wrote in his blog, adding, in a reply letter, the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency has ended decades of speculation by verifying that UFO material has indeed been recovered. Now, officially referred to as UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, rather than UFOs, some of the material was placed with a defense contractor for analysis and storage in specialized facilities, Area 51, Bragalia informed in the blog post. Incredibly, part of the information released discusses material with shape recovery properties, much like the memory metal debris found fallen at the Roswell UFO crash in 1947, he revealed. Based on the documentation received, it appears that the retrieved debris exhibits other extraordinary capabilities. In addition to remembering its original form when bent or crushed, some of these futuristic metals have the potential to make things invisible, compressing electromagnetic energy and even slow down the speed of light, Bragalia said. According to Bragalia, the documents revealed the tests were carried out by Bigelow Aerospace, Tim, a Las Vegas company which performs private contract for the Department of Defense. Although much of the report's details are redacted, what can be gleaned is that these technologies represent a literal quantum leap beyond the properties of all existing material known to man. Throughout the received Freedom of Information Act documents, mention is made of potential use of some of these materials in advanced aerospace platforms. Reference is made to desired material characteristics such as being extremely lightweight and tough, like the characteristics of the debris found at the Roswell crash site. In December last year, former President Donald Trump signed a $2.3 trillion coronavirus relief bill, which he also set into motion a 180-day countdown for all authorities to reveal all they know about UFOs. The DIA and Secretary of Defense were given less than 6 months to provide information on UAP to the Congress and committees of armed services, according to the former President Trump's move. Also on cue, America's spy agency CIA allowed all UFO information to be downloaded ahead of the deadline last month. The CIA allowed documents to be accessed by downloading from the Black Vault website. The data involved every instance of unidentified aerial phenomena, which has been mapped out by the U.S. government. Why is this not huge flipping news that they've admitted that that metal was what Jesse Marcel Jr. and Jesse Marcel talked about, the metal that you would bend or crush and it would go back to its natural form. That means that what they saw in Roswell was not a weather balloon. Project Mogul my ass. This is crazy news.
Yes, it is.
And you have about the same excitement everybody else in the world seems to have. What's going on? Is Tim a pod person? Has everybody been replaced?
No, you know why? Because
I'm listening.
Where's the live sample? And where, have you shown it on television? That's the thing.
The government's not going to show that.
It's one thing to report it, to say that it was tested. It's another to bring it on TV and say, well, here's the substance and here's what it does and here's where we've used it and here's, it's in your live airplane, so we put it in a 737 and this is what the black box is made out of.
Yeah. Oof, wow. Crazy. Yeah. I don't know, dude. It's nuts. But here's the deal. If you find this metal, does that mean, is it something that can be replicated here on Earth? Just because you find it and it's got these capabilities, I mean, you could maybe refashion that metal and use it, what was there, the debris, but is there enough to create black boxes for every plane? Can you break down the materials of it if it doesn't exist on our planet?
If they've studied it, they've obviously taken a small piece of it and they've broke it down to its molecular level, and they know what compounds make up this. What did you call it? Is it Nitol Z or whatever?
Yeah, get your Z's with Nitol Z.
Yeah, whatever you call it.
I don't know. Right.
So they obviously know on a molecular level what it takes, exactly how many parts and bits it takes to make this compound. If you know exactly what it takes molecularly to make this compound, you can reproduce it.
I guess, but what if the compound is not something that's recognizable here on Earth? We only have what compounds are recognizable. If you break it down and it's stuff that wouldn't be here, elements that we don't have, there'd be no way to break it down.
Well, it's called alchemy. If it's something that if there's an unrecognizable mineral, then yeah, you can't reproduce it. But most things, I mean, we're all stardust, right? Supposedly most minerals.
Oh, you hippie freak! What has this pandemic done?
No. Listen to me here. So most minerals and most everything that we have here on Earth has fallen to us from the stars, right? So most things we can reproduce here on Earth. Not everything, but most things. So unless there is a mineral in that compound that we can't reproduce, we should be able to reproduce it.
Theoretically, I guess.
So if it does exist, then in that paper, or in that 164 pages or whatever you said was in there, should be a compound, if they know what it is, or Bigelow should know what it is. They should have been able to break it down.
Right. Well, there's a lot of it redacted, so maybe what the compounds were redacted so that it couldn't be used. Because he did say there were aspects of it that was redacted.
Well, when it's lifted, they should be able to tell you what exactly is in it, or at least some of the compounds. So. And then at that point, you can say, well, we know it's real. Or if there's a sample around still, you can say, well, you can touch it, you can throw it around, you could use it for a Nerf football, whatever you want to do, and you know it's real.
Well, folks, we're going to take a break while Peter Pan shakes off his stardust, and we will come back. We've got more of your stories to share, more news from around the world, and coming up soon, a brand new episode of Theater of the Mind, Dave's favorite ghost story growing up, when we return to the best in paranormal talk radio. I'm Dave, that's Tim, this is Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the program. This is Darkness Radio. You can find us here every Wednesday and Thursday. Speaking of Thursday, Tim, tomorrow we've got a great show. M.R. Gorga joins us, and we're going to discuss his book, Demons Among Us, and that is tomorrow. We're going to discuss the first fully documented eyewitness accounts of demonic possession in American history. And this was reported decades before the Salem witch trials. Plus, we'll talk about real personal encounters with black shadowy figures, inhuman entities, visions, and terrifying nighttime visitations. All this plus M.R. Gorga explains how dark forces influence the world around you to deceive and destroy, and in some cases, even kill. So tune in tomorrow. Find out if you're at risk by listening to the best in paranormal talk radio, Darkness Radio. Tomorrow, Demons Among Us. All right, Timothy, David, let us move forward, shall we? Here we've got some, and I've got a lot of these stories, like that last story regarding the release of information. I'm going to put that up. I'm going to have a bunch of these stories up at darknessradio.com under the news tab for today's date, so you can find them there. But you can check out this next one, too. Eerie baby dolls have been found nailed to trees on Cannock Chase, where the little black-eyed girl spirit has been seen, I believe. A spooked walker made a very unsettling discovery while exploring Cannock Chase. The trekker, who is a theater practitioner at Walsall Manor Hospital, uncovered an assortment of creepy baby dolls when she was walking over the chase last Thursday, January 28th. According to this article, the 64-year-old waded her way through the undergrowth and discovered a clearing where a number of trees stood with dolls nailed and tied to them. Speaking to the Black Country Live, the mom of two said, "I've had to shield for all the lockdown, but when I was on my walks, I looked a bit further, and as I dug through the undergrowth, I saw these dolls. They were in some sort of order. Their dresses were all raggedy, and they were all tied and nailed to trees. And as I came out of the woods, I saw a sign that said that this was the operating theater for the old Pensions Hospital. It was just a little weird bit considering what I do for my own job. I have got a friend who is a spiritual medium, and she wants to go and take a look up there to see if she can feel anything. She later went back to the site to check out the dolls again. She said, it wasn't that scary, and I stood in amongst the dolls. I was saying my prayers. I talked to the dolls and wished the children who used to live in this mining village eternal rest. History on the site shows an old war hospital was built on Brindley Heath where the dolls were discovered. The walker also discovered signs revealing that the area was once the Ministry Pensions Hospital, which closed back in the 1920s. After this, the buildings were acquired by the colliery to make houses for miners along with their families. The site was then known as Brindley Village and had a school and a workingmen's club. The village lasted until the early 1950s, and residents were moved to a new council housing estate on the outskirts of Hednesford. Did you get that, Tim? Hednesford.
Yeah. Totally, yeah.
These are creepy. Oof.
I have a different theory. It's just bait for Sasquatch.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's
Nail a
like,
baby to a tree is like bait for Sasquatch?
Yeah, you know how when you go duck hunting, you throw those plastic ducks out in the water?
Quack, quack, quack.
Yeah, it's just, when you got to put up people meat for Sasquatch. So you
meat?
Yeah, so you put, you put baby dolls on trees for Sasquatch.
What the living hell? People meat.
People meat. Sasquatch loves him some people meat.
All right, what would you do, theoretically, Tim, with our love of McRib, what would you do if tomorrow you found out it was people meat and they were coming back with it again in 3 months? Would you still eat it?
I'd ask for extra barbecue sauce, Dave.
Right, cover up that gamey human flavor?
Yeah. You got to do what you got to do.
A woman said she spent 3 years terrorized by a dark spirit after finding an abandoned painting and taking it home. Mel Hamilton said that from the moment she put the portrait in her house, things took a turn for the worse. She found the painting dumped by the side of a commercial bin in Brighton Street. It had a broken frame, but Mel, 55, thought, that's a nice picture. It was painted in 1973 and featured an attractive woman dressed in a white robe and covered in jewelry. Okay? Mel decided to save it from being thrown away with the rubbish and took it home, a decision she now regrets. She said that within days of reframing and hanging it, paranormal activity began. Mel and her partner split up, and she moved out, taking with her just clothes on her back, her dog, and the painting. She said, that is the only thing I felt so drawn to. I loved it, but her problems continued. One day after moving out into a new apartment, her old but otherwise healthy German Shepherd dog suddenly died. Soon after that, she said, dark and unexplainable paranormal activity happened frequently in the flat. The TV would change channels by itself and doors would open and slam shut. On one occasion, Mel was awoken by the sound of keys opening her door. She said the unexplainable began to happen. I would hear the door handles move, and keys would go in and out. The TV changed channels. All right, now Tim, let's go back and examine one of the statements here, right?
Okay.
She says, soon after the death of her dog, dark and unexplainable paranormal activity happened. Dark, TVs going on and off by themselves, doors opening and shutting by themselves, and then hearing keys jingle in a door. None of this sounds dark to me.
No, it just sounds like she might have a potential roommate.
The overwhelming darkness was awful. I felt alone. It was very quickly becoming apparent that something was amiss. Everything was going wrong. Everything. As a gardener, she liked buying new flowers, but even that went wrong. Mel said she watched plants die before her eyes within hours of being put in the flat. She said it was as if a dark entity had attached itself to her with the intent of ruining her life, something not uncommon, according to researchers. Paranormal investigators believe dark energy or spirits prey on people when they are at their most vulnerable. Haunted antiques are not uncommon either. In 2018, a paranormal research center for investigating haunted antiques opened in Hinckley, Leicestershire. Run by paranormal investigators Neil Packer, the center collects objects mainly from antique centers to see if they are haunted or hold attachments. The research center says some have spirit attachments, others have spiritual energy, but all with a story to tell. At the time, Mel, who lives in Ramsgate, was battling an alcohol addiction that she believes was propelled by the spirit in the flat. She tried to tell people what was happening, but they dismissed her as just being a drunk. She said, things have gotten unbearable. There's so much activity, I just don't want to live there. Why don't we just get rid of the painting? Send it to that research center.
Yeah.
The energy in it was so bad and so dark. I was a nervous wreck and covered in crosses. I went to a meeting and tried to sound rational, but nobody believed me. 3 years after she discovered the portrait, she had enough. Convinced, took her 3 years. Convinced it was the source of the dark energy in her life. She got her son to throw it out, and almost immediately after it was removed, the activity stopped. Mel said, I finally have peace. 3 years of sobriety and a loving family. My home I am no longer afraid of, and I have a very supportive new man. I wonder if anyone knows why. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense in this article, so I'm not going to read. I don't know if they're being cruel or mean. But yeah, looking at the picture, I don't know why it was dumped to begin with, but it does have the artist's name on it. It looks like, I can't tell if that's a J or an S. J or SHOAN, Prince's symbol, IZAW. Oh, Stanislaw. I bet it's Stanislaw Eccles, EKELS, maybe another S. I'm not sure.
Sorry, I'm not sure
about
that.
Wow. Oh, okay.
Yeah, even my ECHO isn't sure about that.
All right.
Yeah. I said Eccles. And it thinks I'm talking to it. Off, Eccles. Well, you're laughing at me, but when you look at this, I'm going to shoot you that image.
I'm laughing at the fact that your thing went off.
Oh, yeah. But you laughed at the Prince symbol. Take a look at this picture. Tell me it doesn't, at first glance when you're looking at it, just look like not a letter, but more of a designer symbol for somebody. I don't know. Maybe I'm hallucinating. It's not allowing me to copy the picture, so you're screwed, Tim. You're just going to have to take my word for it.
All right.
I'll have it up on our site, folks. You can go see it, and then maybe you can look up the artist and find out if there are other haunted paintings from this artist. But that'll be up. I will tell you we're having a little bit of trouble updating the news, so it might take a couple of days. I'm hoping by Friday afternoon that page will be updated. It's just that My lovely wife, who has full run of our website, is without her computer right now. It's not working, so we're trying to get that fixed and get it back up and running. And she doesn't remember the password, Tim.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's in her computer. Hopefully we'll get back access to our website soon.
Oh, good.
Yeah, things happen. Things happen. I'm not here to judge much out loud so that she can hear me, but I'm not here to do that, Tim.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, let's go to Liverpool since we're overseas, Tim, where a mom is haunted by a wardrobe she bought on Facebook from strange folks. A wardrobe, for those of you in the United States, is like a movable closet, right? It's kind of like a big dresser you can hang clothes in, and then drawers as well. Just so you're on with me on this, so you know what I'm talking about when I talk about a haunted wardrobe. It's not clothes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A mom claims she's been plagued by disturbing nightmares ever since she bought a secondhand wardrobe on Facebook from what she considered strange folk that gave her an uneasy feeling. The woman posted her story on the Am I Being Unreasonable thread on the parenting forum Mumsnet to ask advice on what to do about the bedroom furniture, which she said has some bad energy. She wrote, I want to start this post by saying I'm not generally a woo-woo type person. I'm not talking about ghosts or implying that the furniture is haunted, but I just wondered about bad energy. Just over 2 weeks ago, I bought a pre-owned wardrobe on the Facebook marketplace. It's quite old, probably irrelevant, but the people who delivered it were very strange. The sort you get an uneasy feeling from. It was a very awkward handover. Well, ever since I got this wardrobe in the bedroom, I've been plagued with disturbing nightmares every single night without fail. The mom added that her little girl had now started being frightened during the night. My toddler, my darling daughter, who also sleeps in my room, has been saying she is scared in the night. And she's never done that before. She doesn't know about my nightmares and has no reason to be unsettled all of a sudden. My mood has been quite low for the same amount of time with no particular cause identifiable. I'm finding myself feeling uncharacteristically short-tempered and down. AIBU to think, I don't know what this means, AIBU, to think all of the above may be linked to the wardrobe and bad energy. Bonkers, or is it possible? Lots of people responded with mixed opinions about what the cause of the negative feeling could be. Some were convinced she needed to get rid of the wardrobe, with one even joking she could take a sledgehammer to it. They wrote the wardrobe is evil and is clearly an entrance to the underworld. Baba Yaga is preparing her demon monkeys and will arrive tonight to pillage your kitchen. Immediately take a sledgehammer to it and burn its splintered remnants in your front garden. One person replied, get rid of the wardrobe. It's probably self-fulfilling prophecy after a bad handover, or perhaps the wardrobe is made of hellwood and cursed by Beelzebub himself. Doesn't matter at the end of the day, regardless of the reason the wardrobe makes you unhappy, get rid of it. A second agreed. I'd get rid of it. I don't believe in woo either, but I bought a ring on Facebook once and it just gave me a bad feeling. I can't explain it. My mood changed. It was weird. I gave it to a charity shop. A third person said, honestly, it's bonkers, but I have had the creeps too and would be listing it on Gumtree or Free Cycling and getting it out of my house ASAP. Finally, another user said, I'd get rid of it. I've watched too many horror movies not to. But some people believed it was all in her head. One person said, you're fucking crazy.
It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. Another commented, talk to it. I know it sounds mad, but even if it's just your brain playing tricks on you, you're kind of reassuring yourself too. I believe that. Talk to it. Give it positive energy, you know. Hey, thank you for being a part of my home. I love you. Your gorgeous wardrobe. Thank you for holding my clothes. And, maybe sage it a little bit. That would be my thoughts. But, you can't go wrong talking positive to these things.
I would also sit in front of it and say, hey, Mr. Wardrobe, don't unleash your monkeys on my kitchen. I just got done remodeling it, and I think it looks mighty swell. I don't need you to fling poo all over it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wonder if she took some black light inside of there, would she find like blood? What if there was a body that had once been held in that wardrobe?
Oh, yeah.
I'm taking you to a dark, scary place, Tim.
Yeah.
I didn't even bring chips.
What, monkeys coming out of it isn't scary enough?
No, you love monkeys.
I do love monkeys. I think that's the best wardrobe ever. I'll take it.
All right, listen, folks, it's here. It's time. Let's do this. I'm very excited. I wanted to do something a little different. I threw the idea at Tim. He said, yeah, let's go for it. Growing up, there are certain things that kind of connect you, and you realize you just have a fascination and love for this. I never get tired of this story. I've listened to it thousands of times a year since I first heard it back in the 80s. So I wanted to just do a reading of it with Tim doing his magic behind it. So ladies and gentlemen, from author C. Daniels, please enjoy our rendition of The Legend of Woolly Swamp today on Theater of the Mind.
Well, if you ever go back in the Woolly Swamp, well, you better not go at night. See, there's things out there in the middle of them woods that can make a strong man die from fright. There's things that crawl and things that fly and things that creep around on the ground. And they say that the ghost of Lucius Clay gets up and he walks around. But I couldn't believe it. I just had to find out for myself, because I couldn't conceive it. And I never would listen to nobody else. And I couldn't believe it. I just had to find out for myself, because there's some things in this world you just can't explain. Well, the old man lived in the Woolly Swamp way back in Booger Woods. He never did do a lot of harm in the world, but he never did do no good. People didn't think too much of him. They all thought he acted funny. But the old man didn't care about people anyway. All he cared about was his money. He'd stuff it all down in the mason jars, and then he'd bury it all around. And on certain nights, if the moon was right, he'd dig them up out of the ground. He'd pour it all out on the floor of his shack. He'd run his fingers through it, because Lucius Clay was a greedy old man, and that's all there was to it. Now the Cable Boys were white trash. They lived over on Carver's Creek. They were mean as a snake and sneaky as a cat and belligerent when they'd speak. One night the oldest brother said, "Y'all meet me in the Woolly Swamp later. We're gonna take old Lucius's money and we'll feed him to the alligators." Well, they found the old man out in the back with a shovel in his hand and 13 rusty mason jars he just dug up out of the sand. And they all went crazy and they beat the old man. And then they picked him up off the ground. They threw him in the swamp. They stood there and laughed as the black water sucked him down. Then they turned around and went back to the shack, and they picked up the money and ran. But they hadn't gone nowhere when they realized they were running in quicksand. And they struggled and they screamed, but they couldn't get away. And just before they went under, they could hear that old man laughing, and a voice as loud as thunder. Well, that's been 50 years ago. You can go by there yet. There's a spot in the yard in the back of that shack where the ground is always wet. And on summer nights, if the moon is right down by that dark footpath, you can hear 3 young men screaming, and you can hear an old man laugh.
Dude, I absolutely love that. Great job on that, first of all. Thank you.
Yeah.
Second of all, I just love that story, man. I used to listen to that, and it would creep me out to no end, and then I'd start it over and play it again. And I know Theater of the Mind, usually we only play stories that are real stories and are based on real things, but it's always kind of a neat little deal to get a little insight into what makes us tick. And I think part of my fascination with the paranormal is because of songs like that. The Devil Went Down to Georgia and The Legend of Woolly Swamp, and just hearing some of those songs growing up that had weird ghostly connotations to them really stuck. But that's one of my all-time favorite songs and stories. So I hope you enjoyed it and our little take on that version. If you've got a story that you want to share with us and we could put on Theater of the Mind, a good scary story, a weird story with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, psychic phenomena, monsters, myths, legends that you've encountered, go ahead and write it up for us as a narrative. And if it's about 2 to 3 pages long, that's perfect. Make sure you've got some spacing in there and hit that auto check just for yours and my sanity, if you wouldn't mind. And we will feature it on an upcoming episode of Darkness Radio Theater of the Mind. So thank you very much for that. All right, Tim, let's get back to some news, shall we?
Yes, indeed.
Scott's psychic snaps ghost of girl at a Scott's castle where she smelled rotting meat. A Scott psychic is told of snapping the ghostly figure of a young girl during a trip to an abandoned castle turned asylum near Glasgow. Bethany McPherson's skin-crawling experience at Lennox Castle with her ex and his sister is enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. Well, we'll be the judge of that.
Yeah.
From smelling rotting meat and burning to having an object thrown at her, the 23-year-old is adamant the site near Celtic's training complex is a hotbed of paranormal activity. But it was when she looked back at the pictures from her trip that things started to get really creepy. Speaking to the record, Bethany from West Lothian said it was dark and I immediately felt uncomfortable. I just had this horrible, sick feeling in my stomach. I'd been taking pictures in what I think was a clear cellar where I could really smell the burning. My ex thought there might have been a fire lit somewhere at that point recently, but we looked around and couldn't find one. When we look back at my pictures, you can see this wee girl in one of the windows. It's a wee girl, Tim. I don't see it at all.
That'd make me crap my pants. An invisible wee girl you can't see at all.
Yeah, Bethany explained that she only discovered the site's dark history after she made the trip. The young spiritualist developed a love of exploring abandoned places just before she fell pregnant at 19. How does one fall pregnant?
Well, see what happens, Dave, is there's a naked man who fell to the ground and can't get up, and then you accidentally trip and fall on top of him. And there's the miracle of love right there.
What if she's fallen first and then you've fallen trying to help her up? That would be the style I'm used to.
That is the alternate version of how it happens.
Having previously been to other sites, such as Ayrshire's Loudon Castle in the Bangor Village Hospital in West Lothian, Lennox Castle remains the trip that sticks in her mind. The group first went to see the castle earlier that same day, around 2 years ago, without any supernatural encounters. But when they returned later that night, things took a dark and sinister turn. She added, "We went into a bit, which was a tunnel. I think it may even have been previously the morgue, as there were holes in the walls, but I just remember smelling the disgusting scent of rotted meat. I knew instantly I had to leave. As we were leaving, we heard an object hitting off a piece of metal. We just started running to get out. I took that as a warning to leave, and I've never been back, but I think about it all the time. I can't get it out of my head." Despite the terrifying encounter, Bethany is determined to go back when lockdown restrictions ease, this time armed with some ghost hunting equipment. She said, "I'm going to hopefully go back in the springtime when restrictions ease up, and this time I'll take some dowsing rods and an energy monitor to see if I can actually capture anything. There is definitely something there. I wouldn't do an overnight stay there, no way, but I'd like to go back in when it's dark and see what I can find. You always get skeptics, and I deal with them a lot. I'm really open-minded, and I fully understand that some people will not believe it unless they see it with their own eyes." Just like Charlie Daniels. I couldn't believe it. I just had to see it for myself, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
I fully get that because I'm the same. But people who are closed to it won't ever see it as you need them to believe. Originally a thriving binaural mansion and estate, Lennox Castle was built in 1830s before being transformed into a psychiatric hospital in the 1920s. Plagued with rumors of mismanagement and abuse, conditions got so bad that in 1986, the hospital's medical director, Dr. Alzadar Sim, broke ranks to say that he had never worked in a worse pit. It was finally closed and many of the buildings demolished in '02, with the castle itself being so badly damaged in a fire back in 2008. I don't see the ghost girl in the window. People can look, but I don't see it. It'll be up on our page. I don't know. I don't see it. Very weird. All right. A couple more news stories, Tim.
All right.
I'm just trying to find. I had a couple. Oh, here's another ghostly story from overseas. Since we're on a tear with these suckers, let's just keep tearing them. The ghostly monk of Conisborough Castle, captured on camera, says paranormal investigator. Dean Buckley says he twice photographed the mysterious figure while carrying out paranormal research at one of Doncaster's most historic and most haunted sites. He says the photos, taken 5 years apart, show the ghost of a gray monk said to wander the ruined walls of the 11th century castle. Dean, a member of the Conisborough Paranormal Research Association, made his sighting late last year. He said, "I was pretty shocked when I realized I had seen the monk again. I've been searching for proof at the castle for a number of years, and I don't think these photos show it." Dean, wait. I've been searching for proof at the castle for a number of years, and I think these photos show it. Okay, sorry, that must have been my little interior dialogue coming out. Dean and his partner Veronica, a spiritual medium, first saw the monk back in 2015 on Castle Hill, the road leading up to the castle, as he was about to pack up for the night on a ghost hunting expedition. He said, I was just putting all my stuff away into my rucksack. All of a sudden, I saw a pair of legs from the knee down. It was like a monk dressed in a gown and sandals crossing the grounds. I was there with a medium called Sandra Dunn, and she saw it too. The latest sighting was last year, just before the C-19 lockdown. He said, we were exploring the walls, and it felt like someone was watching us. It was very atmospheric. I took a photo, and this time I caught it from the waist up. I'm convinced it was the same figure as I saw last time. It was a monk standing there. He says he has sent the photos to friends who are convinced the sighting is genuine. He added, I'm an expert, and I've been studying the paranormal for a number of years. The story of the monk that haunts Conisborough Castle has been passed down from generation to generation, and I'm pleased I finally got some proof. And I'm looking forward to going up again and seeing what else I can find. Let me see if I see what this guy sees. I don't see it. I don't believe it, Tim. I think he's a wackadoo.
Very poetic of you to say all that.
Yeah, I don't know. I've not seen it, but I'll post it because I'm that kind of guy. I'm going to give everybody a chance to, evaluate for themselves, Tim.
Okay.
Is that a good way to say it?
Yeah.
All right. Here's a creepy flippin' video. And yes, this will also be up on the site, Tim. There's nothing creepier than when your kid starts interacting with something unseen, right?
Yeah.
Well, what about if two of your kids start to interact with something unseen? How about three of your children begin to interact with something unseen, Tim?
Well, then you just lock the house and move.
Creepy CCTV footage has captured what appears to be triplets talking and squealing as they make contact with an unseen figure in their bedroom. Now, first of all, I got to put out the picture of this for your mentality. It looks like these have just torn their room to shreds. There's stuffing or sheets or something. I don't know, just shredded all over their room.
Okay.
All right. In the footage, the 3 2-year-olds. Oh my God. Could you imagine triplets all at the age of 2?
No.
The footage, you can see these 3 2-year-olds running around their room before all joining each other next to a wall, pointing to something in front of them. Their mom, Caitlin Nicholas, recalls overhearing the toddlers, Presley, Millie, and Hayes, arguing with each other in their home in the U.S. state of Georgia. She says the unsettling encounter has only happened once, but it's not the first paranormal experience in their home. Caitlin first thought to check the baby monitor on January 26th after hearing squealing from the triplets' room and saw them arguing with the wall, which is different because usually as a parent, you feel like you're the one arguing with the wall. In the footage, one of the toddlers can be seen giggling and pointing to the wall and looking back at their siblings, beckoning them over. They all walk over to the wall before the first toddler runs away and the other children start pointing at the wall. In the 5-minute video, you can see how the 3 girls suddenly all look in the same direction and begin a conversation with an unseen figure. And later, the girls start a strange little game. At one point, it looks like the girls hide as if in fear of the apparition speaking to them. Although the strange encounter has not occurred since, Caitlin claims the triplets have woken in the night since, claiming a monster was in the same spot. I know in the video they are yelling, but I think they are playing, she says. We've had a couple of other spooky encounters before, like the girls' toys going off while they're asleep. So this isn't the first time. Yeah, when your 3 kids start seeing something creepy in the house, it's time to sell the house and the kids, Tim.
Yeah, oh yeah. I'd sell the kids first. There's value in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's some good meat on those bones. No, that's wrong.
People meet for Sasquatch.
That's right. People meet. All right. Our final 2 stories are here. Should we upset the medium community or talk about the Tim's favorite 70s band, The Fifth Dimension?
Oh, this is a good one. You know what? Let's hit him with the hammer and then leave him light.
So you want me to just poop all over mediums first and then go to The Fifth Dimension?
Sure, why not?
All right, folks. Tim's the one that called for this. Mediums are more likely to experience auditory hallucinations, according to a study. According to the British researchers, psychic mediums tend to have more hallucinatory experiences than the general population. First of all, duh. If you're a psychic and you're seeing something, of course you're going to be seeing something more than the normal population who doesn't claim to be mediums. I just feel that was kind of a stupid opening. Anyway, some phenomena seem inexplicable from a scientific point of view, especially those related to magic, spirituality. That's the word. All these other words, and I get to spirituality and I can't say it. Some phenomena seems inexplicable from a scientific point of view, especially those related to magic, spirituality, or the paranormal. For centuries, people have claimed that they can hear the dead and communicate with them. Sometimes they use this gift for others and become mediums. A team from Durham University has been studying these individuals and has just published their conclusion of their study in the journal Mental Health, Religion, and Culture. The conclusion was psychics are more prone to hallucinations compared to the rest of the population, more likely to go into a trance as well. The study involved 65 people called clairaudient, which means you can hear spirits, as opposed to psychics who can see them. And that's not what it means at all. Psychics aren't people that can see spirits. It's a totally different thing. Mediums see them, and there's different breakdowns. There's clairaudient, which is your ability to hear. There's clairgustance, when you can smell a ghost. Mm-hmm. There's what's the one when you can see it? That's clairvoyant. Mm-hmm. And then if you have all of the gifts, you are what the hell is the name of that? Clairsentient.
Yes.
So that's unfortunately, now I'm going to question this entire article when they don't even know the difference between a psychic and a medium. So I'm done with this story. No, I'll read the rest of it, but I'm still done with the story. The study involved 65 people called clairaudient, which means they can hear spirits as opposed to psychics who can see them. All of the subjects in the study were members of a British spiritualist association. In addition, 143 people who were recruited from the general population as a control group. The researchers found that mediums tended to trance more, that is, to enter altered states of consciousness or exaggerated fantasy. A high frequency of trance states was associated with more clairaudience in this study. Mediums are also more likely to experience auditory hallucinations, such as hearing voices. 80% of the mediums surveyed report hearing voices as part of their daily lives. Well, if these researchers can actually see that they've entered an altered state of consciousness and are at a higher frequency in these trance states, how can they just dismiss that in those states they're not actually communicating with the dead?
Lithium?
No. According to the research, these hallucinations manifest early in life at the average age of 21, and generally lead people that experience them to inquire about spiritualism. 71% of the mediums surveyed became interested in clairaudience after their first experience. This religious movement is based on the idea that human souls continue to exist after death, and that is possible to communicate with them. According to the researchers, the Spiritualist National Union has more than 11,000 members in England. These findings suggest it is not social pressure, special expectations, or a high belief in the paranormal that leads to experimentation and communicating with spirits. The British scientists say some people are just more likely to experience trance experiences or auditory hallucinations, in which case only spiritual beliefs give meaning to what they feel and experience. For them, spiritualism gives meaning. So I don't know that I don't know.
Sounds like you read an article by a skeptic.
You think?
Yeah.
That they don't even really know the full terminology. Just, I don't know. Maybe I'm being too picky.
No, you're not being too picky. I can sit down and I can write an entire, not from a skeptical side, but from a cynical side, I can sit and write an entire article about why a true psychic doesn't exist. I can write something from a more skeptical side to say essentially what this article is saying. And I can write something from a believer's standpoint, separating the two as to why you might have an auditory hallucination when you think a psychic message is coming through. This is more a cynical article, I believe. Yeah. It just is.
Weird.
Yeah.
All right. Let's dive in, shall we? Our final article is here, Tim, and I misled you a little bit. It's not about the band The Fifth Dimension, but
what?
scientists are pretty sure they found a portal to the fifth dimension.
Oh.
Uh-huh. Yeah, while the warped extra dimension, WED, is a trademark of popular physics model, first introduced in 1999, this research published in the European Physical Journal C is the first to cohesively use the theory to explain the long-lasting dark matter problem with particle physics. Our knowledge of the physical universe relies on the idea of dark matter, which takes up the vast majority of matter in the universe. Dark matter is kind of a pinch hitter that helps scientists explain how gravity works, because a lot of features would dissolve or fall apart without an X factor or dark matter. Even so, dark matter doesn't disrupt the particles we do see and feel, meaning it must have other special properties as well. There are still some questions which do not have an answer within the standard model of physics. The scientists from Spain and Germany explain in their study one of the most significant examples is the so-called hierarchy problem. The question why the Higgs boson is much lighter than the characteristic scale of gravity. The standard model of physics cannot accommodate some other observed phenomena. One of the most striking examples is the existence of dark matter. The new study seeks to explain the presence of dark matter using a WED model. The scientists studied fermion masses, which they believe could be communicated into the fifth dimension through portals, creating dark matter relics and fermionic dark matter within the fifth dimension. Could dimension traveling fermions explain at least some of the dark matter scientists have so far not been able to observe? We know that there is no viable dark matter candidate in the standard model of physics, the scientists say. So already the fact asks that the presence of this new physics. Basically, a key piece of mathematics creates bulk masses of fermions that are manifested in the so-called fifth dimension warped space. This pocket dark sector is one possible way to explain the huge amount of dark matter that so far has eluded detection using any traditional measurements designed for standard model of physics. Fermions jammed through a portal to a warped fifth dimension could be acting as dark matter. How would we observe this kind of dark matter in order to verify it? To date, this is the holdup on many different theories of dark matter, but all it would take to identify fermionic dark matter in a warped fifth dimension would be the right kind of gravitational wave detector, something growing in prevalence around the world. Indeed, the answer to the dark matter conundrum could just be around the corner and somewhere in the fifth dimension. Well, that's it, my friend.
All right.
We have come to the end of another gay escapade, Tim. Gay in this term meaning happy and light and exciting. Yeah. Tomorrow, Demons Among Us, things go dark with M.R. Gorga. We'll be talking about that on the show. Friday, we will be talking about last week's episode of The Holzer Files. So please make sure that you check that out. You can watch our live video stream on Thursday night on Darkness Radio Facebook page or the Darkness Radio YouTube page. And then the audio is available on Friday. Also, a quick favor. My son, Cliff, who is a Minnesota firefighter, former naval person, but I don't remember the name of that, but he was in the Navy. He does a lot to help with different causes, and every year we do the polar plunge, diving into the icy lakes of Minnesota to raise money and awareness for Special Olympics. And this year, we are doing that again. If you're interested in donating and helping, could you email me, dave@darknessradio.com, or hit me up on social media. I'll send you a link to help out, because all the money that's raised goes to help Special Olympians train their outfits and their travel so that they can attend the Special Olympics. It means a lot to my son and our family to be a part of this and carry on this tradition, and you guys have been amazing in helping over the years. So, again, if you're willing to make a donation, any size, every $1 we raise goes a long way to help these kids in need. 1, 5, 10, 20, 100, whatever you've got, the money goes directly to the Special Olympics and their needs for the polar plunge. So please help us out and make a donation. Email me, dave@darknessradio.com. Just put in the title or the reference part of the email, Special Olympics, and I will send you that link. Thank you again. Stay safe, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow with more of the best in paranormal talk radio. I'm Dave Schrader. That's Tim Dennis. This is Darkness Radio.